Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last edition of the Share and Discuss webinar for 2024. It's been an amazing year, an amazing ride, and want to start by first appreciating everyone who have been a part of this conversation all year long, or over the past years. We hope that you've enjoyed the sessions, the conversations, and the speakers as much as we have enjoyed putting it together. I'm sure you would have noticed we have lots of faces on the screen today. This edition promises to be special. We have an amazing set of people who will be sharing about their experience around, of course, our commitments to improve the teaching and learning of maths and science on the continent. So, without further ado, before I introduce our speakers or hand it over to them to introduce themselves, I'll just take a moment to go through the housekeeping rules and we will be right on our way. This webinar is the PhET Share and Discuss webinar, and it is brought to you by the PhET Interactive Simulation Project at the University of Colorado Boulder that creates free interactive math and science simulation. The sims are based on extensive education research that engage students through an intuitive game-like environment where students learn through exploration and discovery. The project was founded in 2002 by a Nobel laureate Carl Wyman. So it's in its 21st, 22nd year now. At the PhET Interactive Simulation Project, our goal is to improve the global teaching of math and science. And in line with this goal, the webinar series is one of the targeted initiative or programs where we bring in seasoned researchers and practitioners, amazing educators, to share amazing experience and research findings on the continent, basically something related to our context, so that we can leave this conversation ready to apply some of these recommendations, strategies, and experience in our classroom to improve our craft and, of course, help our students achieve their objectives in class. The webinar holds every month. That's the third Wednesday of each month. However, this is a special one because we want everyone to enjoy the Christmas or the end of the year break. So we thought to move it back by a week for this edition so that, of course, everyone has enough time for the upcoming holidays. But this is the schedule typically. It holds every third Wednesday, and this is the breakdown for time based on the country or time zone you are located. And you can catch up with this recording as well as the past editions from inception by visiting YouTube and searching for PhET Interactive Sims. You'll find the playlist just as you see on the screen where you can catch up with all of the past speakers. And of course, you're also at will to share widely with your colleagues, especially those that you find relevant to your context. While this session is on, we are unable to take questions. However, we would have session questions at different intervals. If you have questions for this edition, please feel free to raise your virtual hand and we'll be happy to hand the mic over to you. You can use the question and answer feature as well to drop your questions and we'll get to share directly with the speakers. However, towards the end of the meeting, we've also saved sufficient time to be able to address all the questions that you might have related to today's conversations or anything about PhET. And as always, I say this almost all the time, we do never almost have enough time to effectively exhaust the ideas or conversations that happen. So I invite you to the community on Facebook where you can connect with all other super users of PhET on the continent. And you can also stay abreast of news and events as they become available. So please visit the Facebook group, which is PhET Educator Africa. Of course, request to join, and a member of the team will add you to the group, and you can continue to connect with everyone. Just before we go into today's session, I would want to introduce or just go quickly through something that many of us are aware of, maybe not all of us, but I'll just run through it quickly and then introduce our speakers. As you know, over the past 2 years, we've had this amazing group of teachers from the continent become PhET Fellows. And PhET Fellows are more practicing teachers who have gone through like a capacity or leadership program with PhET, and have gone through that to become exceptional leaders in their craft, either at the national, the state, or district, or even in their classroom. They've been equipped with both leadership, policy, community, as well as instructional leadership, and they go about the continent at the moment, strengthening other teachers to integrate effective pedagogies that amplifies the result that they get in their classroom. And this is just a snapshot of the fellows in recent years. So this is and you can look at their countries as well. I'll share before the end of the meeting where you can find all of this on the website. Also, you'll find fellows from the two cohorts that have held, and of course, they're spread across the country. I'm going to tell you towards the end why I brought this up early and why this is important, and how this might also be relevant or useful for your craft, or how you can also support the effective teaching and learning of maths and science in your country. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing this amazing set of leaders who have decided to come share of their experience today. They've done amazing work over the past 2 years. So they'll just share a bit, and we'll also have the opportunity to ask questions along the way. In no particular order, I think I'll start with Tabot. I'll just allow them introduce themselves. Tabot is from Cameroon. I'll allow her introduce ourselves, and we'll just go around before we just it's going to take something I didn't say from the beginning is if you've of course if you've attended at least one of the session, we've almost always had one speaker because we have very little time. But today because it's the end of the year, wanted to give you something special. So what is better than one? It's four or even more. So we brought four people to share their experience, and I'm sure you'd leave with something really packed because they'll be sharing of how, of course, PhET and its recommended activities have transformed their classroom. So today, and without further ado, I'm happy to introduce Tabot to everyone. Tabot, over to you.
Thank you, Shola. Welcome, everyone. I am Tabot Delphine from Cameroon, Africa in miniature. I'm a chemistry educator, and presently I am a regional pedagogic inspector for chemistry from my region. Pleased to be with you for this series. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tabot. I'll go with Grace.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Grace Daka. I'm from Malawi. Nice to meet you guys. I'm a biology and chemistry teacher in the northern part of Malawi, which is in Mzuzu. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Tabot. Over to you, Beria.
Thank you, Sola. Good evening or afternoon, depending on where you are. I am Beria from Kenya, a teacher trainer, and a great enthusiast of everything ICT in education. I'm very pleased to be with you today, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation. Welcome all.
Awesome. Thank you, Beria. Of course, just a widespread across the continent. We've seen Grace from Malawi, Tabot from Kenya, and then Beria from Tabot from Cameroon and Beria from Kenya. So over to you, Samuel, before we just go to some round of questions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samuel Okoth, and I'm excited to be part of this webinar today. I am a science education specialist in mathematics and chemistry, and I have a deep passion in STEM learning, accessibility, engaging students and teachers in impactful STEM learning. I look forward to sharing more about my journey and the lessons that I've learned in this fellowship journey. And I'm also looking forward to learning from you. And thank you so much for joining. Let's explore and see how we can be able to learn from this journey.
Awesome. Thank you, Samuel. I'm sure the fellows would also love to know where you're joining from. So please feel free to write in the chat your name, the country, and the subject that you teach. Your name, the country you're joining us from, and the subject that you teach. Would love to know where you're joining from. So I'll start with the last thing you said, Samuel, in terms of sharing your experience around PhET. So tell me about your journey, of course, as an educator to knowing about PhET? I don't know. Did you know about PhET prior to the fellowship, or just around the fellowship, and how has that transformed your classroom?
Thank you. I learned about PhET before the fellowship. I've been involved in creating teaching and learning resources for students in an after-class activities called Maths Camps. And we were using PhET to explore various ways that could bring on exploration and creativity of students. And just like creating toys or any other teaching material, we learned that PhET was had this greater potential of bringing out the childhood playful learning of a child that requires creativity, that requires practice, that requires problem solving. And so this approach, after a few trials with students in a camp, and also introducing teachers and getting feedback from teachers, I learned about the fellowship. And after applying and getting involved, I got an opportunity to be able to, write a clear plan of how I could be able to impact the community of teachers that I was already part of, and how I could be able to expand this community of teachers to introduce them to how this particular resource could be used, as well as sharpening my vision in creating a generation of learners that are not only proficient in STEM education, but learners that can be empowered with skills to be able to tackle real-world challenges. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So your quest to improve interaction and engagement for students in your classroom led to finding or discovering about PhET. I'll come back to answer what has that journey been like as well, from discovering. You've spoken about how you arrived at PhET, but we'd want to see from discovery till date what that is. But I would also allow Tabo to share about our journey. How did you find out about PhET? We might have. Okay, while we're waiting for Tabo to go, would you like to go, Grace?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. I learned about PhET by a friend of mine who is also a 2022 PhET Fellow in Malawi, Cosmas. He's the one who introduced PhET in one of the WhatsApp group, science WhatsApp group. So I became curious to know more about PhET. So I had to contact him, and he helped me to navigate through some of the PhET simulations. So from there, I really had curiosity to learn more about PhET, because I realized that the simulations that are there are really helping my students to understand the concepts much, much better and easier than the way the textbook was explaining. And when I tried it out to my students for the first time, I realized that students were really, really happy, and they were so much engaged in the learning, and it was like a lively lesson. So because of that, that gave me so much enthusiasm to know more about PhET. And that's when he also introduced me to applications of PhET Fellowship. And then I applied to become a PhET Fellow.
Awesome. Thank you, Grace, for sharing. Tabot, are you able to share now?
Sure. I would rather say that my journey with PhET is quite an interesting one, beginning from when I first encountered PhET simulation from my boss, who forcefully introduced it to me. I wasn't really welcoming. Yet I took it, and during the COVID period, he introduced the simulations when we instituted virtual learning in our educational system. At that time, I could integrate PhET simulation blindly into the lessons, but they were fun to me and interesting. But I was not really deep into the engagement was not that deep until when I had the fellowship in the US, my Fulbright fellowship in the US, and I was reintroduced into the PhET. Then that was when I had that full dive into it and decided to do a research. And when I came back from my fellowship, through my research, I realized that there is a fellowship going on for PhET Fellows for Africa. And that's how I ended up applying and getting engaged with PhET simulation right up till this moment, when in any of my lessons, I try to see whether there exist PhET simulations that I could use to integrate in the lesson. And when I am engaged with other educators, science educators in my community, I bring them closer to the implementation, the usage of PhET simulation. And it has been a very successful ride right from the start, right up to this moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tabot. I was worried when I heard forceful. I think that's like a new way of getting introduced, but it looks like it was a very good forceful way to
Yeah.
get hearing about your journey now. But yeah, that's amazing. Mberia, would you like to tell us about your journey?
Sure. I think my experience could be the oldest because I think I learned about the FET more than 10 years ago.
Interesting.
I've always been an enthusiast of ICT, and having seen how ICT was changing the business sector, I was always wondering how come that education, we are the ones who produce the ICT graduates, yet there is no impact of ICT in education. So because of that, I started trying to look for resources which I can use, ICT resources which I can use to teach. And then I stumbled upon the PhET simulations. I think like 10, 12, or 15 years ago. The first simulation I came across was the generator simulation, which was still Java files. I tried to play them, they could not play in my computer. I later came to realize that there is something called Java runtime environment, which I required in my computer to run the simulations. I installed, and then I started using the simulations. I have been using these simulations from that time up to date, and I always use them in my classroom because they make learning fun, engaging, enjoyable. And also, I started introducing them to fellow teachers, and they were also very much impressed by how interesting and enjoyable they are. That has been my journey.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Mberia. So we have someone with like legacy experience, someone with COVID experience, like just an array of experience in terms of getting started with your journey. So I am particularly looking forward to learning more about your experience. But again, I'll jump right back to you, Mberia, based on what you said last around, of course,
Yes.
transforming your classroom. Can you give specific examples in terms of how you've used PhET to enhance learning in your class or community? What transformation have you seen? What changes that have you been able to achieve as a fellow, but also as an instructor, as a teacher?
So generally, first of all, as I said earlier, I'm a teacher trainer. So I use PhET simulations when I'm teaching because I teach science. And through the use of simulations, I found that teaching is very, very interesting to the learners. That's one thing I've noticed. Number two, when you're using the simulations, learning becomes engaging. You find that in most of the teachers, they think that integration of ICT in teaching means just coming with a projector and then projecting some resource. But I always ask the teachers, what's the difference between projecting a picture or having the picture on a chart? It's almost the same way because learners are rather passive. And then when you're using the simulations, the learners get to engage, they get collaborate. They learn valuable skills like the collaboration, communication skills, and other interactions. That's one. Then number two, there are some concepts which are a bit abstract. Like in my case, there is the optics part, which is very abstract to the learners. But when I use the simulations to teach them, it becomes very easy for them to understand because they are able to visualize. When we talk about the characteristics of the image formed by the various lenses, with the geometric optics simulations, they are able to see, to visualize what is really happening. Even a simple concept like the states of matter. When we talk about the particles, the movement of particles in a solid are close apart, others are far apart. It may seem easy, but to a learner, it's something he cannot visualize. But when you are using the simulations, it becomes very easy for the learner to visualize. Those are some of the things I've seen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to change the question slightly so that we can just have different instruction. Grace, I would like to come to you now. Can you share similar question, but are there specific examples or stories or testimonies from teachers or students, your colleagues or students you've taught that have benefited from using PhET as in for teaching or for instruction? You're muted, Grace.
Yeah, I'll start with the examples from the students themselves. Actually, when, like in my own example, when I'm using the PhET simulations, trying to maybe explain a concept, you could maybe see the students like nodding, agreeing that, oh, this is this the way things are supposed to be? Now I understand. And also, you know, in some experiments, like in physics, like for example, experiments concerning maybe electric currents, girls, they are usually afraid of maybe tampering with the wires. I don't know, maybe by naturally, they are just afraid of touching. But when I was introducing the simulations to them, I could see that girls were able to participate. There was confidence in the girls. They were not afraid that maybe they may get shocked or anything else, or they may get banned. So it was like a less intimidating environment to them. And that made them to participate in the experiments more. And I could see that now more girls are participating. Previously, we had very few girls in classrooms regarding physics and chemistry. But now I can see that there's a huge turnover of students in chemistry. And also, there is another testimony about a teacher who helped a student understanding on how the subatomic particles of atoms are arranged, which are the protons, electrons, and neutrons. So upon using the PhET simulation, the students were able to understand those concepts much better, unlike when they were using the textbooks. And also, when they are interacting with the simulations, they could ask maybe questions like, what if I take maybe this bulb and put it here? What will happen, madam? So maybe I would tell them, can you try it out? So they'll try it out, and that means when it fails or it is in line with that what they are thinking, they are able to build up those concepts together, and they are able to take out the misconceptions by themselves using the PhET simulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace. There's so much to unpack from that. I like your angle around how it lowers the barrier for students, irrespective of where they are, things are along gender or even like academic level. There's an easy entry, and we can see progression or gains. Do you share the same experience, Sam? Samuel, do you have any experience from teachers or students in terms of testimonies from their interactions with PhET?
Yes, yeah, I have. My testimony is mostly around curiosity and building curiosity of students, and particularly the environment that most students get is one where they are afraid to speculate. Perhaps they are afraid to speculate ideas, maybe because they do not have the opportunity to experiment them, or maybe they would be thought of as perhaps crazy or something. But I've had opportunity. I've seen students take this opportunity of playing, just playing with PhET simulations as games, and making different discoveries that even before you planned for that session, you were not even going towards that direction. You just have to control it towards the goal you had for the learning, but you still want them to take more time and practice and come up with more discoveries and over. For example, there is this particular student who like wrote a feedback in a journal, how they were very excited to explore something using computer, and they expressed that they wished they had a power to use a computer to be able to change almost everything at their best ability, so that humans can be able to enjoy life that comes from solving problems using technology. And such kind of an excitement tells you about the excitement that they have experienced from learning. If you look back at how most of the basic skills were learned long time ago, even before we began using, for example, technology, it required long hours of practice. It required long hours of being able to do the same thing over and over while trying to learn how it works until it becomes automatic in us. But there is that limit. When you are using a real lab, and you are trying to conduct your own experiments, you are trying to test something, but PhET doesn't give you that limit. So long as you can be able to access either online or offline, most students have been able to go ahead. They have gone ahead and tried out some of these simulations on their own, just from the excitement and from the curiosity they had when this was introduced, and they come back later on with different ideas that they are interested in exploring further, and they build their own experiments. I wanted to read for you one testimonial from a student who wrote, "I wonder how the computer can be easy. Can So I'm just reading directly from the student. I wonder how the computer can be the easy way of solving equations in different subjects. I thank you for coming with a good method and an easy way of learning." So this particular student looks at it from a different point of view. Like they already view it as a new way of approaching the problems that they have. Yeah.
Awesome. I like the comment and just the way you captured the students' feedback in terms of the experience and how learning with the computer transformed their experience and the gains they achieve in the classroom. I am aware and know that everyone present on the call, as well as many fellows across the continent, have done amazing work in spreading the word or empowering other teachers with the skills, know-how to be able to transform their classroom with the knowledge you now have. I'm also aware that that comes with challenges in terms of some of the barriers or context that the teachers face. To be able to solve the problem at scale, of course, we need to increase access and impact. But from your lens, considering your leadership plan, how it's evolved, how do you think STEM, science and math teaching on the continent can be transformed as thought leaders if you could enact a law, if you have a single one solution to be able to transform teaching and learning, what recommendation would you have based off your experience so that everyone, anywhere, every student has the opportunity to learn math and science efficiently? Who would like to go first? Okay, Tabot, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. What an interesting question. You know, we are in Africa.
Okay, I think we lost Tabot briefly. Okay.
And
Tabot, feel free to turn off your video where you're coming. Umberia, would you like to go while we're waiting for Tabot to return?
Okay, sure. So I think from my experience,
we talk
number one,
Africa, the first thing. So
okay.
I was, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead. Beria will just please
Okay,
turn
I
off
was
your video
just
temporarily if that
I
improves
was
it.
just saying that when we talk Africa, the first thing that comes to mind is connectivity, internet connectivity. And when we come and talk about computer-based technology, computer-based model, integrating into our teaching and learning of science and maths, the teachers, the administrators, the politicians, everyone will ask, is that possible? But with PhET, we all know that it is possible because of the offline based asset that they have. So if we were to base our attention only on the online version, then the challenges would have been enormous. But based on the fact that there is a possibility to access this simulation offline, it goes a long way to solve a lot of challenges that would have been faced with the issue of connectivity, internet connectivity. So I must say that that is a plus, and it comes to sort out inclusivity in our society, because we have a lot of levels, social and cultural differences. We have ethnic differences, religious differences, all of that. If we put it in line, we'll say that inclusiveness has a part to play when it concerns PhET and its simulation. So it is easy. In Africa, we no longer talk about connectivity when we are dealing with simulations, because in our classrooms, even in the absence of electricity, in the absence of internet, we can still have access to this resource, which is a must go for. So we are calling on all of us, all of the educators, to come in and don't say that this is my challenge. What have you done to surmount the challenge? PhET has done a lot to surmount most of the challenges. We will not say that the challenges will be uplifted 100%, but at least to some extent it is. I always call PhET simulation a versatile resource, a versatile 21st century resource. So let's go for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tabor. So I hear it's available offline. Many of the built-in features around localization already addresses many of the challenges that are prevalent in our context, and teachers should just embrace and give that a shot. Sam, would you like to share some experience or thought around that? How can PhET teams contribute to addressing educational challenges in Africa, especially around math and science?
Thank you. I think in our interaction with most schools and most STEM centers, the first challenge that you are mostly told is infrastructural challenges, and mostly it's explaining a physical infrastructure. Let's say, for example, a lab, or maybe a teaching aid, or maybe other resources like laboratory equipment. But I think there is already a way we can leverage on technology. For example, right now in Kenya, in a rural school that is just starting from grade 1, or just a junior secondary that is starting from just one classroom, you can be able to access these resources using one laptop and one projector. And sometimes just one laptop and being able to use or very different whole class strategies that PhET introduces us to. For example, you can be able to just use this one resource, give students opportunity to be able to play and make discoveries and write their own observations just by observing and asking prompt questions. And this can go further, and you do not even need internet, because in most of these learning opportunities, the engagement can be enhanced in different ways. Traditionally, we most depended on memorizing a concept, or maybe an understanding that required more demonstrations for a student to understand. But right now, with technology, and with PhET simulation in particular, we can be able to give a platform that students can directly interact with and give you their own views. You don't have to tell them that this is what you are looking for. They will tell it to you. Just by playing with something that is visually engaging, just like the games in the smartphones, the students can be able to grasp concepts. For example, there is this simulation in that is used in introducing probability. I've used it before. It's called Plinko probability. Being able to explain to a student the chances would require that you do at least 2 or 3 classes with different kinds of demonstration for them to understand that and make their own conclusions. But just giving them that Plinko probability simulation, they can be able to play with it. They can be able to make their own discoveries and write it down, so that you just work from their own conceptions while you try to correct or try to work together to achieve what you would like them to learn. If you look at it from the perspective of continuously engaging teachers on a professional development, so that they can be able to put these resources into use. What if we just look at it like a game, so that the teachers can just do one level of this game, they go ahead and try out in their classrooms, like making a continuous professional development, just like a game. Most games on the phone are put on different levels, from easy to middle to the next level. And then the teachers, after trying out the first level, there is this pleasure that comes from solving this first challenge, and you are more interested to solve the next challenge and the next challenge. So I think just conducting a continuous professional development with the very first one, just starting it from just the basic level, the easiest one. Let me call it the easy level of this game, so that once they can be able to see how this is going to solve their problems in the classroom, it is going to be easy for them to incorporate into their teaching. It is going to give them a pedagogical, like a digital pedagogical skill that is more student-centered, that is more inquiry-driven, that is empowering them to be able to practice and foster a long-term improvement in their classes. And I also think about when you look at it in the context of Africa, you also want to address the idea of sustainability, because in most cases in the context that we are in, you want a solution that requires minimal cost and not compared to buying more books, not compared to setting up a big laboratory or buying more computers. You just need something that can easily be implemented and can be spread to different other schools, because there are a lot of rural schools in the rural areas that face the same challenges. So something that can be able to make STEM more accessible and at the same time equitable, so that if it works in one area that doesn't have internet, that doesn't have access to electricity, you can replicate the same thing in another area and in another area. And in working together to put these teachers in one community of practice, they can be able to learn from one another and see how to be able to solve these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There's a lot that came out from that. I see that you agree with Tabot a lot, but most importantly, you also touched on continuous teacher professional development that would help build capacity around student-centered pedagogies, inquiry, and then, of course, continuous improvement on the part of teachers. I would like to go to Grace and come back to Mberia quickly, and then we'll ask questions. I see a few hands are coming up. James, please just allow us to go through the questions, and we'll take all the questions towards the end. But also feel free to use the question and answer feature. Then we can hand you the mic to just ask your questions directly. But I would ask, don't lose the thought. Put your questions in the questions and answer feature here on Zoom, and then we'll come back to that quickly. Grace, how do you think PhET can address the challenges faced to ensure students learn maths and science effectively?
Thank you so much. In Malawi, we are also experiencing a challenge, which Samuel has explained, of lack of laboratory materials. You find out that most of the community-day secondary schools do not even have a laboratory at all. And if it has one, there are no laboratory equipment or materials or chemicals that can be used for students to conduct the experiments. So the coming in of the PhET simulations will help to bridge the resource gap which we are having now in Malawi. That means students can be able to do some experiments which could have been difficult due to lack of resources. And now just using a computer and it can be a projector. Now a teacher is good to go. And I also looked at contribution of PhET simulations to some of the challenges of maybe teachers' workload. It can take you a lot of time to organize materials and resources to do the experiments. But once you have a PhET simulation, you are good to go. You just have to have a computer, and then the students will be able to interact with the simulation. So much as maybe teachers might be worried about the use of computers, the use of internet and the likes, but it has also been alluded that there is also an offline access. That means teachers can just download the simulations and then they use them. That means it has saved time in preparing the interactive lessons. And I also have looked at the use of PhET simulations in helping in the challenges of rote memorization in the students. Usually, some students, because they are not able to understand the concepts, they end up memorizing. And now it won't do them good because they don't know anything. They're just doing memorization for the sake of passing maybe the national exams. So introducing PhET simulations will help to prioritize the critical thinking among the students in our secondary schools, and they will be able to explore and rather than just doing the memorization. And in a nutshell, the abstract concepts that are really difficult for students to understand, they will be able to understand them, making the teaching to be easier and also the learning to be much easier and more impactful. And I experienced this in my own classroom, where now my students are able to do well, even during the national exams, ever since I started using the PhET simulations.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Grace. I don't know, do you have any other thing to add? I know a lot has been said in Beria, but I'll just have, if you have anything to add before we go.
Okay, thank you, Salah. Maybe for me, I'll just, from experience, in Africa, we talk a lot about lack of resources. But then, even where resources have been provided, like for example, you find that in a situation whereby all ICT have been provided, but teachers still don't use them. I was sharing with the PhET Fellows recently, and interaction with our teacher, I was asking them if they use the ICT. They told me that they don't use because the cables were eaten by rats. So I was thinking, for the cables to get to an extent of being eaten by rats, it means that they have stayed for maybe months without being used. So very quickly, as much as we talk about resources, the way Sam said, we need pedagogical approaches which enables teachers to use the ICT resources. Like the PhET, what we have said, very good that we have offline module. I met some teachers who they have a laptop, of course, which can operate. You can use it maybe for 2 or 3 lessons. I also found them having a projector which is powered by a battery. It has an internal battery. And then they are able to use those ones in classes which doesn't have electricity. So the resources are there. We only need to have pedagogical approaches of using them.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mberia. And just the last round of questions before we turn it over to our guests and people just listening to us, because everyone gets a chance to speak as well. I am aware that you provide some of this support you spoke about to ensure teachers develop the pedagogical know-how to effectively implement the same. So it will be interesting to know from each one, what kind of support do you offer? What are you open to? And what are the ways that people can connect with you if they're looking to, of course, leverage your expertise to bring this know-how to their country, to their community, to their school? What ways, what are you open to, and how can they reach you? And Barry, over to you.
Okay, thank you. For me, currently what I'm doing a lot of teacher support. In Kenya, we have a junior secondary, which is just starting. So I'm currently involved in training the junior school teachers. And what I'm doing is actually modeling, because when you tell them you can use ICT in classroom, theoretically, they may not be able to get it. But then I go there and then I model a lesson on how to use the ICT resources. Through that, they're able to see practically how it is done. Then secondly, I'm doing a lot with teacher trainees. Like I teach in a teacher training college, so I'm teaching them on how to use the simulations. And moving forward, I want to spread the gospel to the neighboring institutions. like the neighboring universities and other teacher training colleges, so that I can impact on the teacher trainees even before they leave college. Because sometimes we wait for them to come to the field and then go to teach them how to use technology when they're in the field. I feel if we're able to teach them while they are still in the training, then they will be more effective. And that's what I'm focusing on at the moment. Thank you.
Awesome. I like that you're addressing the teacher pipeline just before they get into service. Grace, how do you support the development of effective pedagogical skill to leverage PhET simulations in your context, and how would you like people to reach out to you?
Thank you so much. Actually, now my school, Katoto Secondary School, is right in the middle of the city, and usually most of the activities are done at our school. So usually I use that opportunity to reach out to teachers who have come for maybe some workshops and other activities to do at our school. So I could do one-to-one discussion, explaining to them about PhET, anything any question that they want. Our website. Sometimes I also use the WhatsApp chat from different groups that we have in the northern part of Malawi, and as also a leader of the Secondary School Teachers Union in Malawi, in the northern part of Malawi. I do interact mostly with teachers when we are engaged in some of the teachers' affairs. So I use that opportunity to reach out to teachers about PhET. Right now, we have an ongoing learning session via the Coursera with the students that I introduce them to PhET. These are the final year students at the Mzuzu University who are now going for teaching practice. So I had to go and introduce to them using the resources from the American corner as an exchange alumni there. So I'm trying to reach out to university students in the near future so that they are able to learn more about PhET simulations. Thank you so much.
Grace, thanks, Grace. Tabot, you're muted, please. Tabot, you're muted.
Okay. I mostly engage in professional training, professional development of teachers in my region and beyond. Teachers in my region, most especially chemistry teachers, and beyond, most especially the science and maths teachers, especially on the Coursera platform, learning management system, where presently I am engaged in the third cohort of educators who are engaged in the active learning of PhET simulation. So there's a course there which is going on right now, and any science or math educator can integrate. Presently, I have 3 Ghanaians who got in touch with me and engaged in the learning of PhET and integration in their lessons on Coursera. Also, I carry out some projects, training teachers, organizing a workshop in my region to train teachers on the use of simulation. Some time ago, courses My bosses were in PhET, so they had to get engaged in the course and carry out the workshop, and it was an interesting one. I am now getting into the stage of moving to classrooms whereby teachers do integrate and as well facilitate or assist in the integration of PhET simulation in their respective. 2025, we shall be receiving teacher trainees from the university. They will be sent to the field, and when that is done, we always introduce them into the use of PhET interactive simulations.
Thank you so much.
So, yes, few and others that we intend to carry out. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabot. Just for everyone joining, this is one of the many ways that fellows continue to support teacher professional development on the country, both at the national, at the regional, at the district, or even one-to-one or in as colleagues in school. So I just dropped the link in the chat where you can find information about all of the fellows across the continent and the country they are located. And of course, you can also reach out to them directly if you need support around integrating, about bringing, of course, collaborating with them to bring their expertise around developing the effective pedagogies or strategies to effectively use PhET simple in the classroom. Then, of course, I'm sure they are happy to help and answer questions at varying levels. And they can also, we've also seen collaborations across countries, where they come together to offer, just like Tabot said, the teacher professional development workshop via Coursera. I'll come back to you, Samuel, just as we close. I see James has been raising his hands for a while, so I'll allow James, who is also a fellow, and would like to crash our party. James, the mic is yours now.
Thank you, Shola. Yeah, as you already said, my name is James Salom Agbenyu, one of the PhET Fellows from Ghana. Yeah, so I just want to add this to what my fellows, my colleague PhET Fellows have already said. As we empower the teacher, I also realize that empowering the students more is also very beneficial. Sometimes we do overestimate the challenge of having access to devices. But what I realize is that now these devices are available to the learners, computers, and then the tablets. Most of them have them in their homes. So one of the things that I did is to make sure that all learners in my community that have access to these tablets also have these simulations on their tablets. And so if you just give them the simulations, they may not know how to do with it. So I took my time to design activity sheets to guide them to do their own investigations into the concepts. So usually in my classroom, I don't wait till it is time to teach that concept before I introduce it to the learner. But I make sure I have given them activity sheets that they themselves can use in advance to do their own investigations into the concepts. So by the time I teach it, most of them have already done their own things and then understand some of the concepts. So my work becomes easy. And when it happens that you see them bringing up questions, once they bring their questions, you just guide them to use the simulations to do their own investigations. Then the lesson becomes interesting. So that is the perspective that I want to add. So let's make sure that all these learners, in fact, they have time at home. So if they have time at home, then they can do their investigations at their spare time. So we should make sure as teachers to encourage them to have these simulations on their devices. That is all that I want to add.
Awesome. Thank you so much, James, for adding the student focus today. Of course, they are the final recipient of the teacher capacity development, but we should not ignore students while we prioritize teachers in offering support, because there are many opportunities to directly reach them as well. I would want to again appreciate everyone for, of course, taking time to join us from inception, from January up until now. I have had the honor and privilege to listen to the different speakers. I've enjoyed every bit of them, and I'm sure we all have as well, speaking from the many feedback and remarks we get. Thank you for making a date over the year. It's been very insightful conversation, and we hope that this platform and this dialogue and conversations continue to transform our classroom. As we close out, encourage that we please, of course, for those who cannot join synchronously, please, you can visit YouTube to catch up on this session and past recordings so that, of course, you can disseminate and let people become of the opportunities available at for to them to basically take advantage of this team of amazing leaders available to support at any scale or size to bring effective teaching pedagogies into the practice for maths and science teaching and learning on the continent. I would like to wish everyone an amazing, amazing end to the year. Thank you for making a date, and we look forward to seeing you again next year. Have an amazing time, and bye for now. Thanks again, Samuel. Thanks, Grace. Thanks, Beria, and thanks, Tabot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.